Hey guys, welcome back. Okay, today I thought that we could do a video talking about all of your little questions about being an influencer things and stuff, because one, knowledge is power. Two, it's fun being nosy. Okay, let's jump into it. The first question I have here is, what is your workday like? What is your workday like? I can read. Do you set like an 8 to 5 schedule, or is there different hours every day? I don't have a schedule like that. I have like a rough estimate of what I'm going to be doing on different days. And I used to just kind of do whatever the fuck. I would just wake up and decide what I was going to do that day. But what I found is that made it a lot more stressful for me. So it's really easy when you work from home to like put things off because you're like, there's always tomorrow. Like I have more time tomorrow. I have this time tomorrow. Like, and you just keep pushing it. And then you get into this really stressful routine of just leaving things until the absolute last moment that you could possibly do it. And then having to rush and like get everything done in that like one small amount of time. So I give myself kind of like a rough outline of my weeks. So I keep it all on an agenda. So Sundays, I usually film my video for Tuesday, send it through to be edited. And then on Mondays, I work with my mom and we do things behind the scenes. And then I'll post my Tuesday video, do the thumbnail, do the description box that is always hilarious, come up with really, really good jokes for the description box. I prepare all that stuff on the Monday night. Then Tuesday, we record the podcast. We do that pretty sporadically, but now we're trying to have a day for it. So we record the podcast, and then we're planning to take pictures as well after the podcast so that we can start kind of making content for the Approachable Podcast Instagram. And then if it's my week to edit, then I usually try to edit like that same day or the day like immediately afterwards kind of thing, just because I like to get it out of the way. And because if we have any ads that we have to send through for approval with the podcast, then we kind of have enough time where we can send through those ads. They get approved or they don't. We put them into the video if they're approved, or the audio, sorry. And if they're not approved, then we have time to re-record and still be able to upload before the following Wednesday. Wednesdays is when Approachable Podcast gets uploaded. And then I'll usually film my Friday video on my Wednesday. Thursday, I go to therapy. And then I upload my Friday video to be prepared. We've decided that every Friday, Alyssa and I will do a live over on the Approachable Podcast YouTube. And then Saturday's free time. So typically my day, if it's a filming day, I'll kind of get up. Usually the first thing that I do is film and just kind of like get it out of the way, especially because I'm usually like getting ready on camera or whatever. And then I'll spend time answering emails, responding back to people, whether that's like my managers or other people that I work with. Spend some time doing that. Every once in a while, like if I'm dealing with some kind of negotiation thing, then I'll have to like talk to my managers on the phone and talk through my intake and outreach. So every single week, my manager sends me an email with different opportunities and asks me like if there's anyone I want them to reach out to, etc. So I'll usually call them. We'll kind of go through the opportunities that came through. I'll tell them what I'm cool with, what I'm not cool with, whatever. Sometimes we'll discuss certain things that are like in contracts with upcoming like sponsorships with brands, and I'll be like, I'm not going to do that thing that it says in that contract, so let's take it out. I do a little bit of that. I do some other stuff that's like behind the scenes stuff that's kind of ongoing all the time. And then I'll try and come up with video content ideas. So sometimes I will be scouring the web, trying to come up with content ideas that seem interesting to me or feel, kind of like on brand with like what I'm trying to do with my channel. The reason that I feel like I have a hard time coming up with content ideas, literally anytime I'm like, I don't know what to film, my friends or like Matt or whatever is like, film this. They give me like a million different things to film and I'm like, no, because I don't like challenge videos. I don't like silly shit, basically. Like I want my videos to be like educational and stuff like that. So I spend a lot of time brainstorming about what the fuck I'm going to do. And then I play Stardew Valley. So anyways, every day is really different. Some days there's just simply like not a lot to do. And then other days things come in really, really last minute. Like every once in a while, I'll get asked to go travel somewhere, like it could be Thursday and they want me to go on Saturday. So I have to like really quickly like get my shit together and film everything that I need to film for the amount of time that I'm going to be away for, get anything else done that I can't do on the road or whatever. So that kind of stuff happens all the time, as well as brands like reaching out for sponsorships that they want like now, like they need it like in a really, really quick turnaround. So that's, I try to keep my schedule as flexible as possible to accommodate things coming up last minute, but a lot of the time there's loads of free time and I dick around. Someone said when there's a collab with another YouTuber only uploaded on one channel, how is the money from the made from the video divided? I don't know. I'm not really like a collab bitch, okay? I've done like very few collabs. Anytime that I've done it, there is no division of money. It's kind of like we usually end up trying to film content for both channels so that we're both, you know, getting content. But I've never done that. Yeah, I don't know. And I've never had someone like ask that either. I think a lot of the times collabs are exactly that. Like it's just meant to be like mutually like beneficial so that we're both coming up with content and you guys are kind of, you know, sharing your audience, and that's it. But it's interesting how often people ask that question. I wouldn't even think about that. Oh, someone said, have you ever been offered a paycheck by brand A for a video bashing brand B? It's so funny. I can totally see why people would picture that happening, but absolutely the fuck not. I would be appalled. Like, let me speak to your manager, appalled, if that ever happened. I have, however, had brands specifically ask me not to talk poorly about other brands. Like if I'm talking about like whatever, let's say like a bronzer, they would be like, please don't mention, you know, like another brand poorly in like relating it to this product. So like if I was to be like, oh, I like this bronzer so much more than I like this bronzer from this brand, they'd be like, just don't do that. So no, but that's fucking crazy. I've heard like rumors that there was an influencer that had that on like their rate card. Like they had a thing that said like, basically like slanderous shit. Here's my rate for that. But I'm not sure if that's actually true. Someone said, at what point in your career did you feel the need to find a manager? So how did that happen? My managers that I have currently reached out to me a few times, but I don't respond to my emails very quickly. So I didn't notice. And then I had kind of like a little bit of an altercation with a brand where basically they hadn't paid me. They were taking like a super long time to pay me. I can't remember what happened exactly, but it was just like I was like hounding these people for payment. It had been like far too long kind of thing, whatever. I was just getting really fucking fed up with it because I think the thing that's really hard is that when you're working for yourself, first of all, a lot of people that are influencers are young and they're not like business majors. They're kids that can do makeup well, you know, and not to like minimize or make it seem like people are stupid or like that I was stupid, but it's just like you don't know what you don't know. So I've seen so many people get taken advantage of. I've been taken advantage of multiple times like within this industry. And it's hard to not just get like frustrated and emotional about it because it's like, that's your work. You know what I mean? Like that's your payment. That's how you're making a living, is what you're doing with these brands. It would be hard for me to not respond in a way that could potentially burn a bridge when I was trying to negotiate everything myself, hounding for money myself, you know, having the direct relationship with these brands and having to fight for yourself constantly and advocate for yourself constantly. I found that really, really difficult because it's not cool. The shit that happens behind the scenes. Like brands can be like really fucking shiesty about stuff. So, and so can influencers. But I was just struggling at that time and starting to get really, really frustrated with, you know, having to constantly advocate for myself and worry about what I was saying and how I was saying it and if it was going to like impact my relationship with these brands long term. And so I went for lunch. I think my managers had reached out to me and asked to go for lunch, and I went for lunch with them and just got a really, really good impression. We talked over email a couple times, and then I agreed to sign with them, and here we are. So they deal with all of the business end of stuff, so I don't touch that at all, basically. It goes from the brand or agency to my managers to me, and then back down the line. to the brand. So I'm rarely, if ever, in direct communication with the brand unless there's like an absolute need for it kind of thing. But that was the point, I guess, when I felt like I needed a manager. Someone said, how hard is it to see the wrong people get attention and fame? Oh boy, Debbie Shaw, Rabiella Shaw. I don't know why I thought your name was Debbie. This used to really, really bother me when I started out in this industry because I was quite young and immature and like just couldn't keep my mouth shut, and I still can't, clearly. But it used to really bother me a lot, like a lot, because, you know, we're just taught growing up that like if you work hard and you're a good person and you do your job well, you'll, you know, get to the top. Like, you'll be rewarded for that. Such fucking bullshit. Okay. I think it's great to work hard. I think it's great to, you know, be professional and all that kind of stuff and put the effort in. But you working hard is not going to be enough in a lot of circumstances. So there just are people that, you know, they just happen to float to the top. And it just is what it is. And there's not that there isn't like reason for it, because a lot of the times those people are just super charismatic, or, you know, they just come across really well online or whatever, you know what I mean? Like it just, whatever reason, they make it there at the tippity top. But it used to bother me a lot. I used to get really, really upset about it. And I wanted to like expose people. Like, I would be so frustrated going to events and seeing how these people behaved, how they talked to like the brand, how they talked to, you know, workers at events, like staff that was taking care of like food and crap like that at the events, whatever. And just hearing about how people treated each other and stuff like that, it made me really, really angry, basically. And so I always like wanted to try and bring up the conversation about how I didn't like certain people and I felt like they didn't deserve it or whatever kind of thing. But now, it doesn't really bother me as much. I've just accepted that it is what it is. And there's people that, you know, they resonate with people for whatever reason. And there's like good people and bad people out there in every single industry. And a lot of the times there's people at the top that are not particularly great people. And oftentimes that's because they're willing to do things to be on top that other people are not willing to do. So I'm fine with that imbalance, because I know that there's still so many good people in this industry that do deserve a place. And I just try my best to, you know, lift up those people rather than get annoyed about something I can't change anyway. So that's that. Someone said, how did you start reaching out to brands for PR? I didn't do that. Like maybe, but did I even do it once? I just don't know. I don't think I ever really did that, to be honest. It was really different though when I was starting out. I think that's like the biggest thing. I'm fucking old, man. When I was starting out, there wasn't even a lot of brands doing PR, to be completely honest. That wasn't like a super thing yet. It was sort of like just Anastasia to like a select elite few. And no other brands were really doing that a whole ton. So I didn't need to, because by the time that it started, you know, that started being a more common thing. I had already grown my account to the point where brands were reaching out to me directly. Someone said it would be interesting to know at what point you should start charging brands to create content for them, and how much do you set your rates to be? I was arguing with this chick on Twitter this morning, and I'm still irate about it, okay? Here's the thing. Why should you ever be doing work for free? I don't fucking understand it, okay? I just don't fucking agree. I've seen so many conversations about people calling influencers entitled, and especially towards, you know, directing it towards smaller influencers, saying that they're entitled, feeling like they should be paid to post content in exchange for PR and stuff like that. And that's what I was bitching about on Twitter this morning. Basically, this brand was talking about how they had watched the attitude of influencers, in quotations, as if that's not like a word. They had watched the attitude of influencers change from professional discount, why do I have to pay to like have your product given to me for PR, to you're giving me product for free, but where's my money if you're asking me to promote or whatever? And they were like, I think this needs to change and we need to have a discussion about unreasonable expectations of influencers. And like, I just could not contain myself. I keep making a promise with myself to stop talking and just shut up. And then I just keep not doing it, you know? How does that make any sense? Who wants to work for free? Fucking nobody. And it doesn't matter your size. If somebody is asking you for specifically required work, in no fucking circumstances should you be paying to work for that person. If you decide that you want to post something for that company for free, that's completely your prerogative. That's up to you to decide whether or not you find that to be, you know, a valuable interaction, or if you want to build the relationship in that way and you're comfortable with that. It's not that free work doesn't happen. It's just that that should be your decision, not like, you know, like it shouldn't be expected by brands. I just don't agree that that's even moderately appropriate. I have issue with brands that reach out to smaller influencers, especially asking them to post a specific amount of posts in exchange for product, and this is becoming increasingly popular to do because brands don't want to have to put that money in. They want people to do things for free. And the most unfortunate part is when I see brands saying shit like that online, there's just like a slew of influencers underneath that tweet being like, yeah, I'd be like so grateful to just receive PR. Like, people should be more grateful. And it's like, you are literally undercutting the entire industry as well as yourself. So you're setting the precedent that it is okay to be expected by corporations to work for free. Fucking why? Why would you ever do that? Why would you do that? Like, it just makes no fucking sense. Like, I don't think I've ever met an influencer that's actually expected payment just for receiving PR. But I've encountered plenty of brands that expect you to post just for getting free product. And ultimately, free product just doesn't pay the bills. It just doesn't. Especially if you're a smaller content creator, you should be charging for content that's required. That's a business transaction. That's not like a favor in return for sending you a lip gloss. Like, it just doesn't work like that, in my humble opinion. What was the question even? I can't remember if they asked about setting rates, but we can talk about that as well. If you're an influencer and you're kind of confused about rates, totally understandable. It's super frustrating. No one's willing to talk about what they're making, and for good reason. Like, there's reason behind that for sure. But there is a website called Social Blue Book, so you can sign up with that. They're not like a sponsor. I felt weird being like, sign up. Anyways, you can like connect your Instagram and stuff like that. And it takes into account like your analytics and then basically like spits out a rate at you. So you can kind of start from there. You can change that as you see fit. Within this industry, the rates are set, you know, by the individual. And so if you feel like, you know, you're looking at your engagement in comparison to other accounts of the same size and your engagement is like significantly higher, yeah, of course you can charge more for your work. So just, you know, try and suss out where you're at, and you can always like ask people what kind of rates they're charging and ask them for help and stuff like that. Obviously they're not like obligated to tell you, but some people might be willing to like discuss with you so that you can kind of get an idea of what you should be charging. Someone says, how do you make sure your personal info stays private? Address, phone number, etc. They said their biggest fear about posting online is how easy it seems to be to find personal info on someone. I am relatively careless when it comes to this. I'm not like super protective over my phone number or even my address or whatever. There's a lot of my subscribers that have my address because, you know, I've sent them like giveaway products or whatever from my fucking house address because I'm stupid. And I just panic and don't know what else to put down. Sometimes I'll put down my manager's address, so it's their problem. But I don't do that. But there's tons of influencers that are super crazy about it, and they won't show like anywhere like outside of their house, even like in their house where there's like a window outside where you could potentially discern like where they are. Some people don't go by their last name. They don't like include their last name in any kind of documentation online. Even when they're being sent product out, they won't include their last name. They just have to, like, brands have to give it to, you know, whatever your online name is. They just put that in the mailing thing and fucking send it to you. So yeah, some people are super cautious about it, which is probably good, but there's ultimately nothing you can do. You know what I mean? Like if a brand or someone working with a brand kind of like betrays the trust of that company and all of their clients by spreading someone's address, what can you do beyond like take legal action? You know what I mean? Like ultimately, like you can't not sign contracts with your legal name, and you can't not put your address on some things because you have to do what you have to do kind of thing. So you just have to like trust basically that people aren't going to be pieces of shit about it. Someone said, does it ever get to be too much? Like you just want to delete your account but can't because it's your main source of income. Of course it does. Any job gets to be too much and it becomes overwhelming and stressful and stuff like that. I think the biggest thing, if I could explain what it's like being an influencer, is that when I worked a retail job and I had a bad day at work, I would come home and I might be like upset about it, but I could kind of let it go because it was like, well, I'm at home now, like I'm relaxing with my family, like whatever, I'll deal with it tomorrow kind of thing. But with social media and being a content creator, you are the work. So if someone doesn't like something you're doing, it's not like they've come into a store and complained about a product they bought from you that you have like no actual, like you didn't fucking make that product. You know what I mean? It's like they're complaining about you. And when they're questioning your integrity, it's your integrity. It's not like Walmart's integrity and you're just a cashier, you know, like it's you. And so it's really hard to let go of what people say about you that's like negative. It's hard to forget it. It's hard to shut off after like a work day because you are the work ultimately. So yeah, it's absolutely can get to be too much, but you know, most influencers, it seems to me that there's just like this pattern where people get into it, everything's gravy because their account's small enough that like people aren't being pieces of shit. Then people start being pieces of shit and it's literally all they can talk about. Like they're just like bitching about it constantly because you're so annoyed that people are so shitty to you. And then at some point you're like, okay, this is fucking crazy. Like I need to stop seeking out like shit with my name on it and Reddit threads about myself and reading the comments when I don't feel like mentally prepared to read the comments and stuff like that. You start finding ways to cope. And for me, like that included asking people to not send me, you know, stuff that was written about me, because all the time I would get people messaging me like screenshots of comments or, you know, threads on another gossip website or whatever. And I would be like, please stop. Because even when you're trying to avoid it, which is already so hard to avoid, while still being able to do your job, it makes it that much harder when other people are like, did you fucking see this? You're like, I purposely tried not to. Oh, someone said, how do you manage your mental health from negative comments working at all hours in a day? I'm not working at all hours in a day. Pressure from different brands and companies, the threat of being canceled because of something, editing your videos. I feel like it's a lonely life. Oh, I'm so sad with that last sentence. It's super isolating, man. It's super isolating. I manage my mental health poorly, personally. I mean, all of those are like individual problems. And for me, I just kind of like take things as they come. With negative comments, I really do try to, like you guys will see, I fucking rarely respond to comments on YouTube and rarely respond to comments on Instagram. It's because I don't really read comments. I will read comments on my YouTube for like maybe the first 20 minutes that I upload the video, but after that I usually just kind of like check out. The place where I'm going to be the most responsive is usually Twitter, but Twitter has a lot more kind of options in terms of filtering out tweets that can come your way. So I like it for that. But yeah, with negative comments, I just don't read them. I try to not seek out that kind of shit. The work schedule, I mean, you just figure it out. Pressure from different brands and companies, I don't accept that personally. I just feel like if you're coming to an influencer, it's for a reason. If you're trying to come to that influencer to utilize their branding and utilize like why they have a following and trying to tell them to do things in a different way, therein lies the issue. You know what I mean? Like, social media works for that reason. So people aren't coming to other people's channels to hear like a commercial for these brands. They're coming to hear about that brand in the way that that person would actually talk about it. And so that's what people come to expect. They want like genuine conversation around these brands and these products and whatever. And I do believe that it's possible to do these sponsorships in a way where you are able to hit the talking points about brands and mention the things that are important to that brand, while also being on brand for yourself. So that's one thing I really do not care about. It doesn't bother me because I'm more than happy to like stand up for how I do things and how I say stuff, and that doesn't bother me. The threat of always being canceled. Yeah, that's scary. I think every influencer is like super scared of that. And I've talked about this before. It's kind of a tricky thing because I think that it's positive that people are more sensitive towards issues and issues that may not directly pertain to them. I think that is generally a positive thing, and I think it's good that we are expecting people to be, just conscious of how they're speaking and utilizing their platform. But at the same time, on the other hand, I think it's tricky because obviously I'm coming from the other kind of side of the spectrum, and it's tricky coming from the other side of the spectrum because it's hard watching people be able to like grow up and make mistakes and just like carry on with their life like normal people do every day around us constantly, and then seeing how influencers are like constantly held accountable for mistakes over and over again, regardless of whether or not they've apologized, regardless of whether or not they've like never had any kind of issue like the original issue that happened again, whatever kind of thing. And I think that that to me is more scary because it feels like you can't make mistakes that are like genuine, honest mistakes. Like if you're just being a piece of shit, then you're being a piece of shit, and yeah, you're gonna get canceled. But does anyone actually get canceled? That's the truth, because we've been talking about canceling people for a long time, and they're still fucking ringing in the big bucks. So someone said I'd love to know the business side a bit from the beginning so I know what to and what not to accept. If you're an influencer, and especially if you're starting out, and especially if you are doing things on your own, you don't have a manager or an agency, things to look out for in contracts are exclusivity. So if a brand has exclusivity where you can't talk about other brands, that's a big red flag. That's going to be difficult because like sometimes brands have timelines where they're like, you can't talk about these competitors for 6 months. That's your whole job. That is literally your whole job. You cannot limit yourself to one brand and agree to this contract that's going to have exclusivity for what probably is like a very small job. If it's like a gigantic contract where you're making crazy money and stuff like that, that's something else to discuss. But if this is like a small one-off, like you're creating an Instagram post for them or whatever, and they are expecting exclusivity from you talking about other brands, beyond the length of that particular work, that to me is unreasonable. Another thing I would look out for is terms of usage. So brands a lot of the times will get influencers, they'll try to get influencers to sign contracts that say that they have rights to your content that you create in perpetuity, so forever, for whatever they want to use it for. So basically what that means is that they can use that content that you create for that particular job for anything. So if they want to put it on their website and keep it up there for 10 years, if they want to print your face out on a gigantic billboard in Times Square. I was going to say New York Square or New York Times. Anyways, if they want to like put your face on a gigantic billboard, they can do so. Having some kind of length of time where they're able to use that content in advertising, also specifying where that content can be used. So you should be getting paid differently if you are just creating content that you're going to post on your page versus content that's going to be put on their website, and content that, they're going to put onto boxes that they're going to sell thousands and thousands of units on with your face on it, So those are things to be conscious of. Also, there's sometimes sort of this is more rare, but I'm going to mention it regardless because every once in a while there's kind of like some sneaky payment terms. This one person that I knew did a collaboration with a brand that basically said if they didn't sell a certain amount of units within this allotted time that they wouldn't get paid, but the brand never ordered that amount of product anyway. So basically they said let's just say if you don't sell 10,000 units within this time, you're not going to get paid, and they ordered 5,000 units. So there was no opportunity to even sell that many units. Just read contracts, reread contracts, get your mom to read it, get your friends to read it, get anybody you can to read that contract over and just highlight the things that you're concerned about and ask brands. Like if you're unsure about something, don't just be like, it's probably fine. Ask brands to explain things to you in layman's terms, because a lot of the times, these contracts are coming from corporations that have full legal teams. And so the language is not going to be easy to understand. We're not all lawyers, ultimately. There's no shame in asking what this means. There's no shame in negotiating things that you don't feel comfortable with. Negotiations shouldn't mean the loss of a deal. So I know a lot of people are really, really scared to negotiate certain things because they're like, oh, but I don't want to offend the brand or whatever. That's business, baby. Okay? You need to be able to negotiate what's right for you so that you don't end up locking yourself into contracts long-term that are going to be, negative for you. And the other thing you have to be mindful of as well with social media is that it grows. I could go on and on. Social media grows so quickly. And so a lot of the times what I see happening with influencers is they agree to contracts at a particular rate for an extended amount of time. Okay? So maybe this contract outlines you posting 10 posts a month for a brand at this rate for a year. Well, in a year's time, you're going to be hopefully in a completely different spot from where you were a year ago. So long-term contracts like that can be tricky because if you agree to that rate and then suddenly you blew up overnight, you pulled a James Charles situation and you became gigantic and you're locked into this contract where you're making pennies on a dollar, it's just something to be conscious of. Do I have anything else to say about that? Not really. Well, yeah, I'm sure I do, but those are some things to be conscious of. Oh yeah, that's what I was going to say as well. A lot of cities do have lawyers that will do pro bono work. So a lot of the times they can't offer you a ton of advice, but they can sometimes sit down with you and go through contracts and read things out and stuff like that. So that's always worth looking into if you have a contract that you're particularly concerned about. How do y'all do taxes? Fucking taxes. So basically you do taxes like a self-employed person because you are, whereas typically your employer would be giving you some kind of tax form that says what you made and what you paid in taxes and whatever kind of thing. You have to kind of take that upon yourself. So typically you should be paying taxes quarterly, just so rather than having your taxes taken off every single paycheck that comes in, you want to put that money aside and make sure that you are paying every single quarter a percentage of what you're making. And so you can look up your tax bracket online and stuff like that and kind of estimate what you should be paying. When it comes to write-offs and stuff like that, it's just worth keeping every single receipt and talking to your accountant about it and stuff like that in terms of what you can write off. So things like if you're purchasing makeup for review purposes, mics, cameras, lighting, clothing that you're going to wear on camera, travel expenses, food while you're traveling, all that kind of stuff, those can be considered write-offs depending on what's what, as well as actually parts of your rent and stuff like that. If you have parts of your house or your living space that you use specifically for work, then sometimes you can write off a portion of your rent or mortgage or your utilities as well. So that's it. It's not super interesting, but it is very important. Oh yeah. Let me just say this quickly. Nothing is under the table. I hope that you feel me peering into your soul. Just don't do it. It's not worth it, okay? Just claim everything that you make. Try to be very, very conscious about it. This can be tricky because you can be getting income from so many different sources. So keep a log of it. Keep a log of everything that you're making and where you're getting it from and have documentation of that ready, because if you get audited, you're fucked, man. You're fucked. Someone said, I'd like to know how things change with family and friends once you have achieved such a level of success. Is there an expectation to pay for things for them, such as dinners? out or help to support them. I think that would really depend on like who your family and friends are. My friends, nothing changed basically. They're my friends, and I don't really like even talk about what I do here to them because like it's boring and stupid, and there's no need. So it's just the same friendship that it always was. And same things with family. Like I don't have family having expectations of me because my family is cool. So yeah. But I'm sure that does happen to people. I had people more so like when I was on Facebook, like high school acquaintances reaching out to me for shit like that. But I just don't respond. Someone said, what is payment based on? So I'm assuming that person means like how your rates get set. So basically rates are set based on the type of agreement that it is, the type of work that it is, kind of thing. So, if it's an Instagram post, if it's a non-exclusive YouTube video, meaning that you can talk about other brands, or an exclusive YouTube video, meaning that you can only talk about that brand, Instagram story, Instagram TV, whatever kind of thing, that's going to make the rate differ. And then your engagement is taken into account. So, like how many likes, comments, what your reach is, that all gets taken into account. Someone said, how long did it take to make a full-time living? It's such a good question because so many people think that it like happens overnight, and it certainly the fuck does not. So I was doing social media full-time for probably 2 years, I would say, before it was something where I could pay bills pretty, consistently. But in terms of, making like a real like living where like you're actually making like half decent money and you have some money to like put away and stuff, I would say probably about 4 years. But the thing is, it just comes and goes so fast because it's a very like unstable job ultimately. So I think the thing that happens a lot of the times is people are pretty bad with managing their money, and you can get into so much trouble like that because you don't know when checks are going to be coming in. So if you're spending money based on confidence of checks that are coming in because you're young and you don't yet understand finances and how taxes work, etc., and then you went and bought one too many YSL shoes, just all comes crashing down around you. And that's the truth of the matter. But yeah, it's worth being conscious if you start making money that is, reasonable, like decent amounts of money. It's worth like talking to, advisors about what you should be doing with your money, where you should be putting it, and making sure that you're just, protecting yourself and being smart, because it can honestly go as quickly as it comes, and it can be very scary for people. Since it is such a different industry now, how do you feel content creators in the beauty industry have had to change their style, technique, content for videos to be noticed or considered quality creators? So I think it depends on the content creator. Everybody's different in terms of what their kind of like branding is, so to speak. I think that there's just been so many changes, truly. People just do what works for them, frankly. Like that's the easiest way that I could put that. So what works for me may not work for somebody else, and vice versa. And we follow different people for different reasons. So you might follow one person because you like their style. You might follow another person because you like their hair and the way they style their hair and whatever. Another person for makeup, another person for cooking and fitness and whatever. Like, so, it's people just do adapt. Like they adapt to what changes they need to make in terms of like algorithm changes and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't have a very good answer for that, basically. Someone said, do you get anxiety when planning to go somewhere knowing there's a possibility you may run into someone who recognizes you? No, but like I'm not that big of a deal. So no. I get anxiety more so when somebody is like I've had people like taking pictures of me from afar kind of thing, but like not coming up and just like saying hi or anything. That gives me anxiety because I'm just like, this is weird. But no, I wouldn't not go where I needed to go because of something like that. Oh, what exactly happens at brand trips? Is it actually work or one big party? Brand trips are hell on earth. That's not true. Brand trips can be really cool, but I don't drink. So it's not quite as much fun for me. Brand trips are usually a balance of work and play. The brand definitely tries to make it like a really memorable, like fun experience for people. There is absolutely like a lot of fucking partying and drinking and getting wild. Usually with brand trips nowadays, they do have some kind of required content to be made. So, they might say like, we need 10 Instagram posts within this many months surrounding the trip, or, like a YouTube video or whatever, like some kind of content. Some brands don't. It just depends what it is. A lot of content creators, when they go, they just naturally are producing content for the brand, because they're there and they're surrounded by the brand and their people and their products and all that kind of stuff and the experiences that brand is like offering for them. So it's like a pretty good mix, I would say, of work and partay. Someone said, how do you make sure you earn enough to cover your bills each month? Is it stressful? It can be stressful. Usually you get to a certain point where you are better at managing your money, or your work is coming in consistently enough that you don't have to worry about it, or your rate is high enough that you can take less work on and still know that like your stuff is covered. It's hard because even you finding work doesn't really matter in terms of you being able to pay your bills, because a lot of the times, I have work that I've done over a year ago that I still haven't been paid for. So there's a lot of things like that happen, and that's not uncommon. A year is uncommon. That's a little crazy, but like months and months and months, not uncommon at all. So even if you're taking lots of work and you're getting lots of sponsorship opportunities and stuff like that, it can be tricky to manage because you don't actually know when you're going to get paid for sure. And even if it's written into a contract that like you're supposed to be paid by this certain date or whatever, rarely does that actually come to fruition. So you just have to plan better and budget, basically. In terms of like finding work, my managers do like all that kind of like outreach and intake. Someone said, how do you deal with gossip or any misinformation people may spread? You don't. It does nothing. If you try to, some people do try, and it's hard not to want to defend yourself, but it literally does nothing if you try to defend yourself, because you will be painted in the light people want to paint you in regardless. So I just try not to engage with stuff like that, basically. And things pass, and it just is what it is, Someone said, I've always wondered how brands find out influencers' information and address to send them products. Occasionally I'll hear people say, I didn't know I'd be receiving this. And they're curious as to how a brand was able to send something without the influencer knowing. So sometimes the brand has like reached out to your manager and your manager's provided the address and they just didn't happen to like let you know. But other times brands have been known to like share your address with other brands, especially if they're under the same like umbrella, like parent company. Then they might share addresses amongst each other just to get the product in your hands, which is ultimately pretty fucked up. Someone said, it seems like so many influencer friendships die so quickly. Do you think seeing what you see behind the scenes that the competitive nature of the industry is partially to blame? It's funny because a lot of people kind of like are like stuck on the idea of like competitiveness, and it to me it has actually less to do with that, especially like when you get into people that are like larger influencers and stuff like that. Competitiveness doesn't seem to me to be that much of an issue because there just is enough like work for people. I think it's hard. It's like, these people are, it's so hard. It's kind of like relationships that you would have with coworkers. So obviously sometimes it's like a little bit deeper than that, and it is more like a really strong friendship and not just like a like, hey man, I know you from work kind of thing. But it's really easy to make things seem one way when it's not. It's easy to seem like you're closer than you are. I've known people that have continued to portray themselves being in a friendship that they're no longer actually in. So like they would show up to events separately. They would get together, take photos and Snapchats and stuff like that to make it look like they were there together, and like leave separately and not talk to each other for the entire party. But like it was, whether it's their branding or whatever kind of thing, they wanted to like keep that image alive. But in general, like people just come and go out of your life, and that's especially true with two people that are pursuing, careers in a way that's like very, it's a huge part of their life. Like you're focused on other things, you're doing your own stuff. Oftentimes with people in like adulthood, your friends are coming and going, but it doesn't feel as like newsworthy as it is when it's an influencer. So a lot of the times it's just genuine, like people just drift apart. Sometimes it's falling out, whatever kind of thing. I think it's hard. Like it's hard being in this industry. It's hard maintaining friendships within this industry because people are so scared of things like getting canceled. And so they're scared of hanging out with people that might get canceled or that might have said something that they don't want to be associated with or whatever, you know what I mean? Like it's just, there's so many reasons why that stuff happens, but it just is what it is. Someone said, how do you choose sponsorships that align with your values and integrity? Is it possible to make money as a YouTuber or influencer without sponsorships and lots of advertising? Yeah, it's possible to make money as a YouTuber or influencer without sponsorships, but it's just kind of like, why would you? Like, especially if it's brands that you do align with and you genuinely enjoy their products and stuff like that, it's why would you turn it down, you know? So for me, how I choose to, select sponsorships. Basically, brands reach out. They say that they want to partner in whatever way. Usually they'll kind of tell you like what products they're wanting you to talk about. Sometimes if the product isn't actually released yet, you have to sign an NDA, just a non-disclosure agreement, basically saying you won't talk about that product or tell anyone about it. So they'll send the product to you, you can try it, and then you sort of will get back and say, okay, I like the product or I don't. If you like the product, you can kind of move forward with the sponsorship. They'll usually send through a brief with like talking points and key ingredients or whatever, like things that make them proud of the product that they want you to like touch on. And then you can kind of go from there. So for me, if I like the product and I like the brand and I align with those two things, then we kind of move into the hardest and most time consuming part for me is negotiating the brief and negotiating things that I don't want to take out of my video after the fact, after I've already filmed it. So I'll usually kind of go through the brief and be like, I'm not going to say this. This I won't say. This I will say, but I'm going to say it like this, and I'm not going to mention this thing. I would never mention this. I would never say that on my channel. I would never talk about a product like that, whatever kind of thing. And we kind of go through and change the brief to be what it needs to be, and take out what I'm not willing to do, etc. Then you film the video or take the picture or whatever you're doing, you create the content. A lot of the times, most of the times, you send it through for approval. When it goes through for approval, the brand will review it, and then they'll usually get back to you with some kind of notes or edits or whatever. Every once in a while, the brand's like, cool, thanks. And like, it's just, everything's great and fine, and you just post your shit. But a lot of the times, brands will get back with edits, so they'll be like, we didn't like how you said this. Can you take this out? Can you take out where you said this? Can you add text on a screen that says this? Can you blah, 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 whatever. And then that time, that usually takes a long time for me personally because I basically just fight back every single edit because I'm very particular about how I say things and what I say, and it may not seem like it, but I do try to speak with intention. So when I say something, it's because I mean it. And so I don't want to take certain things out because even if let's say I was talking about a product and I said that I didn't like it as much, if it's a sponsored video especially, but generally speaking, I do this in a lot of my videos regardless, but if it's a sponsored video and there's a product that I don't like out of an entire range, let's say I'm promoting 5 different products and there's one product that I just don't jive with, I usually will say I don't use this product or I might not use this, but it would be better suited to A, B, and C, so that I can kind of highlight this is why I don't like this product, but this is why you might like that product. So ultimately, it's being honest about my experience and that I don't use that product because I'm not going to pretend to use a product that I don't use. The amount of times I've had to tell brands other than Hourglass that I don't use powder, I'm I don't use it. I'm people know, they know I don't use powder. So I'm not going to, the only powder that I've used consistently is Hourglass Veil. And so I'm always just I don't fucking use powder. And if I use this powder and I'm it's great, when it's a foundation powder and shit, I'm people will be you're high. So anyways, that's a large part of the integrity thing is just kind of having to go back and forth about edits after you've recorded something. I'm having a lot of people asking me about getting started, if it's worth it to get started now, this late in the game and all that kind of stuff. There's always room. That's my honest belief. I don't think that this career path is for everyone by any stretch of the imagination. I think that anyone can produce content. I don't think that anyone can put up with what it's like actually being on the internet. Not to be like boohoo poor me, but like just honestly, like it's it's not an easy industry to be in. It's not easy to be, to have your life and like your decisions and your words and stuff like that online in that way, and to be scrutinized for those things. It's not fucking easy. People don't do well with it, frankly. So I do think there's always space. I think that yes, the market is like flooded and there's tons of people in it and stuff like that. But ultimately there's always somebody that's still looking for someone like them to watch. So we always are looking for people that are relatable. We're always looking for people that, we can watch and be like, oh, like they're going through that same thing, or, they look like I do, or they have skin like I do, or they have hair like I do, or whatever kind of thing. And there's always more people out there that want to see people like them in media. It is harder now to grow for sure, but brands more and more are investing in micro influencers. They're seeing the value there. I think the biggest thing is that I think a lot of people want to grow to the size of like all the people that are like at the like top of the top kind of thing. And that's, like at this point, it is sometimes a little bit more unrealistic just because it is harder to grow. Like a lot of those people started at a time where the algorithms were very, very different and it was a lot easier. And, they just got in at the right time basically. So growing to that size is going to be like a little bit more difficult if I'm just being honest. But, that doesn't mean that there isn't like value and space in having a smaller account, and that you can't still grow within that, because I know a ton of influencers that don't have particularly big accounts and they're still making over $1 million a year. So I think, that's great and exciting. And if this is something that you're passionate about and you enjoy creating content, regardless of what type of content that may be, just do it, and if you feel like you want to dedicate that time, then you know what you need to sacrifice. You know what I mean? Like if that's you waking up earlier so that you can catch sunlight and take photos before you go to work or whatever, or film or whatever, do it. A lot of people ask about equipment. Use what you have, be resourceful. If you have a lack of resources, just try and get the best out of, like, if the only camera you have is your iPhone, try and get the best out of that. Google it, like look up videos, like how to take the best iPhone photos, whatever kind of thing, and do what you need to do, because you will get to the point where you're able to invest back into yourself and get, better equipment and whatever kind of thing. It's not an absolute necessity. I can say that. It's great. It's a luxury. It's nice to have content that is like clear and have good sound and whatever else, and good lighting, but there are tons of people that are creating content without all of that. So definitely don't get discouraged. It's hard work, but if you enjoy it, then it's worth it, and there's room for everyone, man. So fucking kumbaya, you know what I mean? Okay, guys, thanks so much. Hopefully that wasn't super boring. Hopefully I answered some of your questions, and that's everything. I will see you guys next time. Peace out.